Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah Talk. This week we begin the book of Shemot with Parshat Shemot, otherwise known as the book of Exodus. And it does indeed include the story of the Exodus and the revelation at Sinai and the creation of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, where God will take up sort of permanent, concentrated presence among the Israelites and the Jewish people. But here at the beginning, the book starts in sort of a strange way. It starts by saying, Ve'ele Shemot b'nei Yisrael haba'im Mitzrayma et Yaakov ish beito ba'u. Ve'ele Shemot, these are the names, b'nei Yisrael, of the children of Israel, or Jacob, haba'im Mitzrayma, who came, usually translated, who came to Egypt. Et Yaakov, with Yaakov, ish uveito ba'u. Each one came with a household. So what's strange about this? What's strange about this is the verse kind of links us to where we finished the story of Genesis. As a matter of fact, this is almost the mirror image or the exact quote of a verse that we found towards the end of the book of Genesis. But we're going to immediately skip forward several generations. A Pharaoh is going to appear who doesn't know Joseph. He's going to enslave the people. And the question is, why is this verse here? Very interesting comment on it by Chizkuni that I want to share with you because it explains something very important. The question at hand is, why, when things are going wrong, does it feel like they were never right? Why, when things are bad, we feel like they are always bad, always have been bad, and could never be better? Right? When we are in it, we feel like we were always in it. Chizkuni says that the book starts here to remind us that there were, in fact, good times in Egypt. Right? When the Jews come down to Egypt, remember, Joseph is the king. He's the prince anyway. He is the executive officer of the entire people of Egypt. He's in control of all the food. He gets it so that the Jews can have their own little area out in Goshen where it's good for them to raise their cattle and where they can be successful. And they go there and presumably have no problems. Pharaoh makes sure the Egyptians leave them alone. Joseph makes sure they have food. And as far as we know, everything's fine until this new Pharaoh comes into existence. But Chizkuni makes an interesting observation. It's based on the strange construction of this verse. Right? It says, Ve'ele Shemot b'nei Yisrael haba'im Mitzrayma. These are the names of the children of Israel. Haba'im Mitzrayma means like who came Egyptwards. It's a very weird way to say that. Usually you would say Asher Ba'u, right? That came. These are the names of the children of Israel. Asher Ba'u, that came. What does it mean? Haba'im. Haba'im gives this sense of constant motion. And so what Chizkuni says is that it's written this way to highlight the fact that when they came, it was good. But in retrospect, after having been subjected to cruel treatment by the Egyptians, they'd forgotten that they had ever had good years in Egypt. And they felt as if they had only just arrived there, and when they arrived, everything was awful. And I think this mental state that Chizkuni highlights is so important and so prevalent today. And what I mean by that is Chizkuni is recognizing that when we are in a very bad place, when things are going terribly wrong, we lose all perspective that things were ever or could ever be right. And we end up miring ourselves in this slavery. We assume that this is the way things always were and the things they always will be. And I highlight this today because I hear a lot of this today. Right? I talk to a lot of people and they say, why is it so bad to be Jewish? Why is it so hard to be Jewish? The anti-Semitism and, Israel has it so hard and, it's so hard to be an Israeli. All of which is fair in this moment. Right? Anti-Semitism in America, it's so hard to be Jewish in America. Look, I'm not saying that these times aren't difficult, but when we, like the Israelites who came down to Egypt, mire ourselves in this negativity, when we assume that because we're having a hard time now, Right? What's the explanation we hear about anti-Semitism? It was always there. It was always just as bad. Now it's just become okay for people to say it. I'm not sure that's actually true. Always there, fine. But always just as bad? Not necessarily. Things change and things can go back. Right? We are not now stuck in Mitzrayim, stuck in slavery forever, stuck in this with this virulent anti-Semitism, stuck with this terrible situation Israel finds itself in. And heard there's a deal likely coming, and that some of these hostages may come home soon. May it happen speedily in our days. But it's important for us because the Jewish people's secret weapon for survival all throughout these 3,500 years since this exile took place, since these particular brothers went down to Egypt, has been hope. And the problem is when we stick ourselves in Mitzrayim, when we feel like we have always been in Mitzrayim, we feel like there's nothing good about being who we are. And there's so much joy and beauty in Judaism, even during these difficult times. One of the things that Jewish people are best at is finding the beauty and the joy and the holiness in the worst and ugliest of times. But if we blind ourselves to the fact that there's goodness around us, if we blind ourselves to the joy that it is to be Jewish, we will trap ourselves in Mitzrayim, even as Chizkuni explains that the Jewish people in slavery could not being able to see that things were ever good, had sort of cornered themselves in their own Mitzrayim, in their own narrow space, right? That's what Mitzrayim means. And in a sense, had caused themselves to be in a state where their slavery could never come to an end. They were slaves to their own sense of doom and inability to hope for a better future, to know that things had been better, and to know that they had the power to help things be better again. We have that power. We need to be careful not to mire ourselves in always, it's always been like this thinking, to mire ourselves in the narrow space, to mire ourselves in the slavery. May we be able to grasp hope. May we be able to hope and pray for better times and then help to bring them about. And so escape ourselves, release ourselves from the bondage of the negativity and the anxiety in which so many of us find ourselves today. May it be a joyful, a peaceful, and a hopeful Shabbat. I wish you Shabbat Shalom.